According to the UN Environment Programme, up to 50% of the world's coral reefs have been destroyed, and those that remain are under threat. Well, our next innovation uses AI to track and analyze the health of a coral reef by analyzing the sounds of the fish and the other animals present or not present, as the case may be. In the same way that birdsong can tell us about the health of a forest canopy, so too can the sounds that these underwater creatures tell us about marine biodiversity. Well, Coral Reef Soundscape AI was developed by scientists in the UK. Ben Williams, come forward into the light a little bit more. You are a marine biologist and a PhD student at University College London and Mars Global. Great to have you with us. First of all, tell us how this works. You put a microphone into the water and hit the record button?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, thanks for having me here as well, firstly. And yeah, that's how we start. So we had a whole load of these recorders, and we placed these onto healthy and degraded coral reefs. And these were there doing the listening for us. So they were recording all the sounds present on the reef, so the biological activity that we could hear. And the novelty of our innovation was that we used AI via machine learning to identify the difference between these two habitat types. And it worked really effectively.
Why do coral reefs matter so much?
Yeah, well, they cover only a small extent of the ocean's floor at less than 0.1%. But they host 1/3 of marine biodiversity. So it's a huge amount. And there's over 375 million people around the world who are directly reliant on the ecosystem services that these habitats provide. So despite their small extent, they really punch above their weight in their importance.
Okay, and it's a really great thing that we have AI today because, I mean, the human ear would really struggle, wouldn't it, to differentiate the noises made by all these different underwater creatures.
Yeah, absolutely. And the hardest thing is the amount of data we collect. So we can collect maybe several months' worth of audio in a field expedition or when I send recorders to collaborators. There's no way any of us could listen to that amount of data. So it's a really effective way now. Automating this is far better than what we had previously.
It's much more accurate than what a human could ever do.
Yeah, certainly. In fact, we worked with recordings that were just 1 minute in length, and we found that the model could correctly identify which kind of reef these came from more than 90% of the time. So even myself, who I spend far too much time listening to them, it's much better than I could do with my own ears.
I mean, people have probably here, like me, not really thought too much about the noises that come out of a coral reef. What are some of those noises?
Yeah, there's loads of different sounds. So everywhere we go in the world, we hear this background crackle of snapping shrimp on any reef. And then there's all these bizarre sounds that usually come from the fish. So on a thriving reef, there might be this quiet hubbub. And sometimes it gets really loud. So it's noises like whooping, grunting, purring. There's loads of weird noises underwater that you'd never expect to hear. So that's the kind of stuff we're hearing.
Okay, well, we couldn't possibly not let you hear some of those exciting noises. Let's listen in to a little extract recorded from the depths of the ocean. So what are we hearing there?
So that is a recording from one of our reefs in Indonesia. And actually, most of the fish that we hear, there's sort of the sound source is unknown because it's such a new field. So there's only a limited number of species where we can pin that source of noise to a certain species. But this work, I think, is going to come on leaps and bounds in the next few years.
Okay, what have you found out with specifically that project in Indonesia? Because that's a good example of you putting this to work straight away.
Yeah, exactly. So we were fortunate to be at the world's largest reef restoration project. This is completely supported and run by Mars and Sheba, those brands. And we took recordings from restored reefs. And we had a younger 9-month-old reef. And using our approach, we found it still mostly sounded degraded. But we also had a couple of 2-year-old mature reefs, and these sounded resoundingly healthy. So it was an instant demonstration of a way we can track the progress of an intervention like this much more efficiently than existing approaches. And so now we want to scale this up around the world. We've been sending recorders to Mars and Sheba projects where they're restoring reefs in different parts of the tropics.
So how do we use this information? I mean, can this be used to take preemptive action and basically address a problem before it becomes a really serious problem?
Yeah, so I think there's certainly use cases where we could see that, but primarily the threats to reefs, they're kind of known, and we know the solutions we need to implement these. So climate change, of course, being the #1 threat. So we need to get on top of those, really. That's what's going to save the reefs. But we're hoping technology like this will allow us to measure the impact this is having and perhaps help us measure the impact that positive approaches we're taking, like restoration, can have, and make that easier to do so we can identify the right ones.
And the facts are clear. They're in black and white. You can't argue with a machine that is telling you this is a coral reef in dire straits. So that makes your appeal for action, your call to action, all the more convincing.
Yeah, of course. I think the gold standard of getting data from reefs is still that professional dive team in the water collecting visual data, but that takes so much expertise and resources that it's so hard to do, and it's not available to most projects. So our technology offers something that's a much simpler, more efficient way to collect that kind of quantification of what's going on, like you mentioned.
And just lastly, you've launched a new platform. It's called Calling in Our Reefs, and you've done that with Google Arts and Culture. Just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a project launched by our team, and it's a platform where anyone can help us start analysing reef soundscapes. So anyone here, you could go and listen to soundscape recordings on here, and there's a way where you can let us know when you're hearing the fish or other sounds of interest. And then we're going to use that to try and train the next generation of AI to improve this technology, as well as learn about the data sets we've already collected. So it's called Calling in Our Corals. Check it out. You can find it online. It just launched today.
Calling in Our Corals. Correct me there. Marcus, let me ask for your opinions here. I mean, this is a great monitoring system, isn't it, for saving our reefs?
Well, absolutely. And it's very much, I think, in line with our overall trends. We've very much tried to find exceptional products that combine cutting-edge tech like artificial intelligence with a sustainable purpose. And also there's this idea that we need the data to prove whether our restoration efforts are working, to see whether we should take another approach, and to actually demonstrate the effect that climate change or pollution is having on reefs. So it's very much in the idea of get real, the underlying trend for our, the title for our trends this year. And it's great to see this happening in particular, because it started out at Exeter University, I believe, Ben, Exeter being my hometown, so that was great to hear that. So I think we're entering a phase where artificial intelligence is going to help us to understand what we're doing to the planet, but also on a more positive note, to help us grasp what effects the restoration measures and the positive actions we're taking are having. And so that's really why we thought this was an outstanding project. And on behalf of the NetExplo Innovation Forum, we're very, very happy to give Ben and to share with all the team back in London our trophy for the Coral Reef Soundscape project.
Thank you very much. It's a great event to be here. Thank you so much, everybody.